what's one initiative that you've led that's tangible, y'all?
It's not
That's
Monday.
well, it's almost like I'm trying to say Janice's last name. Uh, what shifted in your culture in your organization that you can think of?
I remember the time frame in which we started to consider onboarding, an onboarding program. And I think that was such a critical time frame. And for any multifamily company, that is a critical time frame. And I remember feeling incredibly overwhelmed at that time, thinking like, gosh, I have no idea where to start with this. And I think my methodology there was, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, really looking at that piece by piece. And I think some of the best L&D work is there's iterations of it. So what my plan was back in I think we started our onboarding program. I think it was either in 2021 or 2022. I can't even remember now. Iteration one is very different from how onboarding looks today at Brighton. And being okay with that, because I don't think anything within the multifamily industry, and maybe other industries as well, is set it and forget it. We are constantly having to relook back at what we've created and say, is this serving us today? We can't get into the mode of, well, this is the way it's always been done. That's such a dangerous statement, I think, for anybody in any sort of leadership or, supportive role. So I think from a culture standpoint for us at Brighton, really looking at onboarding and then reconsidering things through time to just make it the best program that it is today. And our onboarding, I'm proud to say, our onboarding scores generally are between 94 and 95% from a feedback and engagement satisfaction standpoint. So I think we've gotten to a sweet spot, but to continue that culture and to not have it shift in a negative way, we've always got to keep relooking at that.
I think what's interesting is I thought back to the word triage that you used on the earlier question, but I think how you said, is this serving us today, is kind of a form of that triage. So
absolutely,
I love that example. Before Michelle answers this, Ashley, can you think, like, in your mind, as you're placing people in the industry, wouldn't you agree that kind of the onboarding time is really like the most crucial piece of like
Yeah.
when turnover can happen? Do you want to speak to that for a sec?
Yeah, I mean, it could be so make or break, especially in that 2 week window where you're like, please start the job. Like, please just get there on day one. So, like, when you have somebody, from HR, somebody reaching out that's friendly and kind and resourceful to answer questions before they get started, so that, it's Monday morning and they're supposed to start and they're like, where am I going? Like, that's just the scariest thing ever. So I think that this is so important. And then not just that, but once they start and they're getting acclimated in their first few weeks, is there any training? Are they just thrown to the wolves? Like, which can be okay in some cases, but it's so much nicer when it's like, okay, this is where we're going to start. This is what you're going to do, and kind of ease into it a little bit, especially for newer people to the industry, like leasing agents who have no idea what to expect.
I love that. Thanks for adding that. Michelle, do you want to add in your 2 cents to this question?
Yeah, and I love what Ashley shared. I think one initiative that really changed our culture is on our market rate side, we launched a Perfect mentor program. We like to use the Atlantic Pacific AP and a play on words, so A Perfect. And we built it to help the new team members feel supported from day one. And what we've seen is it's reignited like the connection across the company. So it gave our people who've been here, who've in for the long haul, it gave them, a new purpose, and it gave our new hires confidence. And so we measure the first 90 days and then a year. So we're looking at the impact that the program has there, and the results were real. There was faster ramp up time. There was stronger engagement on our new hires. And I think the most important thing is that there was a deeper sense of belonging. So for us, it was a good reminder that culture is not just built by the leaders, it's built by, peer to peer relationships. And I'm a data junkie as a former marketer, and we track those new hires on the market rate side who were hired and had a mentor, and those who were hired and did not have a mentor. And we measure their 90-day and 1 year life cycle. And we find that if we can get them to a year, they stay a lot longer. Our retention rate is, I think, 40% greater at last I checked with a mentor than without a mentor. So we're seeing great retention rates at both 90 and the 1 year mark. So I think that really helped shift our culture. We're actually building out a mentor program now for our affordable division. So excited for that.
And it's almost
Tara,
like we knew the next question. Yeah, go ahead.
we have some answers in the chat for before we move on
Oh, tell me, yeah.
to what people were doing before multifamily. So let's see. Sydney was going to be a museum curator. That's pretty cool.
Random.
Michelle, she was going to join the Air Force. That's pretty badass. So Jessica went to school for early childhood education while working at a preschool. We had Charlene in the restaurant industry. I think so many of us have a restaurant background. Hotels, restaurant again. And Melissa, hey Melissa, she was a manager at Chick-fil-A in college, and she had plans to become a psychologist.
I mean, she's kind of a psychologist
I
as
was
an
gonna
asset
say.
manager.
I think that's a very fitting, like most of us
Yeah.
in some way in multifamily have a little bit of psychology background, right?
That's right.
So you don't have to spend too much time here because you kind of touched on this with, I love the play on words, by the way, that a peer-fict mentor program. Anything else you want to add as we talked in the next question specifically about mentorship versus like training modules? Anything to add before Janice chimes in?
Yeah, I would just say that I wish that more companies understood that it's not like leadership is not developed through modules, it's through a person. And I didn't even know what mentorship was when I was 18 and trying to find my own footing. And that trainer changed how I saw myself. She didn't necessarily teach me everything I needed to know about leasing, but she made me believe that I could do it. And that's, I think, what stuck with me over the last 20 plus years. So I would just say that building programs that connect people to people, because at the end of the day, the mentorship is not just for development, it's to help keep people as well. So
I couldn't agree more, and you guys know how I feel about mentorship. Janice, what would you like to add from your perspective?
I think simply that mentorship isn't a checklist item. It's pretty easy for us to want to immediately drive into these are the things we want our people to be mentored on. And mentorship is more fluid than that. If someone designs a mentorship program and hasn't been through mentorship themselves, it's going to look very much like another checklist or paperwork or some sort of rigid document and say, sign this person up, and have them get together once a month and talk about these things. It's such a case-by-case basis. It's really about not only the mentor, but the mentee. And that is a two-way street. I have a mentor. She's outside of the industry. She's in L&D, but outside of the multifamily industry. And it's been such an incredible journey to get to know her. She's been my mentor for about 8 months now. We'll talk, and it's just, there's no necessarily agenda that we go into a conversation with. We just have this wonderful conversation. And as we sort of like discover something that we want to talk about, we dive in further. And I thought that experience for me was going to be me solely learning from her. And she has been so grateful of the things that all of a sudden I've said. And she goes, I didn't think of it that way either. And, we'll write down notes and send each other emails and send articles to each other. And so that's what I think true mentorship looks like. And it doesn't have to be this like rigid, detailed. We have to like let that person have freedom to explore the things that they're either struggling with or need some help with a mentor.
I love that. And what I wrote down, you said something about a checklist. So it's like making it less transactional, more transformational. And so I love that you spoke to both sides and how both the mentor and mentee can learn from one another. That's really, really, really impactful. While we go into the next question, I'm curious for those on the call, who has a mentor and who doesn't? I would love to know that. And ladies, I forgot to ask, are you okay if we go over time a few minutes to get to some more of these questions and some audience Q&A?
Sure.
Yeah, you guys are good? Okay, perfect. Janice, why don't you take this one? Let's just spend a minute or two on really kind of like, I kind of think of like a magnetic, like push-pull, like what the employees want to learn and what the business needs them to learn. That can sometimes be a little tumultuous. So how do you guys navigate that, Janice, from your perspective?
Yeah, it's funny because there's a book out in the like adult learning world right now that's called How to Stop Being the Order Taker. And it's for like L&Ders who it does feel that way at times. And I think that's also a cultural thing that you have to get buy-in on, is to get away from this idea of like, you know, everyone has gone through learning before. We all have that experience in school. So people, I think Michelle said it a little earlier, people come into that with an idea about what they're going to learn or what they want to learn and where they feel that they might not need our insights or guidance. And so I think to put a stop to that, you really have to like have buy-in from other leaders. But I also think like how do I want to say this? If you spend time connected with operations and you spend time with leaders, you're going to hear those wants and needs filtered through leadership, and those are going to be of a higher priority. So if you're staying connected, you're seeing those needs across a wider audience, not just like a singular person who's saying, I need this one little thing. You're seeing that culturally and you're seeing that across your organization. And then you're able to say, I haven't just heard this once, I've heard this multiple times. And then that is a business need that absolutely aligns. When all of a sudden you see evidence amongst more than one person. And that's something, at least for me, I can then go back to senior leadership and say, hey, I've sort of been a part of these conversations and I'm hearing that there's this need. Is this something we want to address right now? I'm happy to put some steam behind it, but I do want their buy-in before I just jump, feet in and start working on something.
I think that's brilliant. It kind of makes me think of the Simon Sinek start with why. Like in order to get the buy-in, you kind of have to give the why behind it. Yeah. Michelle, how about you?
Yeah, I think, it's the trick is finding that sweet spot. When Janice was talking, I was thinking about that. Like it's the sweet spot, and it's how do we bridge the need and the want. And I think when I mentioned this earlier, adult learners, if something feels like it's being done to them, they kind of tune out. But if they feel like it's being done for them, they tune in. And so getting the messaging and the delivery to shift so that it feels for them has really helped me ease those tensions. Getting behind the products. And I'm fortunate where our operations team often lets me be the announcer of a new technology or new product. And I'm really good at messaging and delivery because of my background in marketing. And so I feel like it fits better with our learners ahead of their learning.
That's important, making sure the message lands, it resonates, and that it comes from someone with some credibility. Like, you've been there before, you understand.